Hello everyone, this is Mini Ninja speaking, and get your popcorn ready because we're doing a bit of an unexpected bootleg breakdown on account that once again I've come across an odd variant on what was a previously known bootleg, namely the SH Figuarts Goku Black figure. Since this doesn't quite match up with anything I've seen in other auctions as well as AliExpress, we're going to do a review of the whole thing from top to bottom in this case, starting off the case, then looking at the main figures themselves and the bits, before we do the teardown at the very end. Sticking with the actual box itself here, we can kind of see there is going to be a little bit of color variation, namely the bootleg here with the darker background is, well, as I was saying, it's a darker background, it's a different purple in here, while the other one, it's a bit more of a reddish purple, and there's also going to be some print quality difference in terms of the hair highlights there, as well as the grays. What I found curious though is on both the real and fake one, normally you never see the Bandai logos on there. Usually the Funimation logo and the Toei Animation authenticity stickers are missing on the bootleg, as they are here, but you see more copyright information that's actually intact in this case. There's a little bit of color variance. It's a little more noticeable in the grays in this particular case, but otherwise it's still pretty decent. And even if you go to the back of the box itself, normally another issue that comes up is there's a little bit of a degradation in terms of font quality, but even on the bootleg, it's nice and sharp on the back, which is actually very surprising. Normally that is a bit of an issue. I'd say in terms of the fonts themselves, aside from maybe a few variances here and there, like with the red text being maybe a slightly different line width, they're pretty damn close. Moving on to the unboxing part itself, I didn't actually make note of this in the earlier bit there, but it turns out the backing of the figure is a slightly different color. It should be a purple one, but it's actually gray in this case. So that is one little difference, so if you're looking for the note of the bootleg, that's something to watch out for. But what I was surprised when I was looking behind the wrong colored backing is it actually had a makeshift manual on there. And this is basically a dead ringer for the real figure. In fact, I'm going to bring out the one from the real figure in a second, and you can see, aside from there being a different way that the paper got folded inside the packaging, they're basically identical. The only real difference I can think, and it's very loose, maybe not even visible in this video, is that there is a slight line difference in terms of some of the fonts. Other than that, you couldn't tell the damn difference, to be quite honest. Opening the figure itself, surprisingly enough, no little plastic film that is in a lot of these different bootlegs. Mind you, there's no protective film at all in this figure, worth noting. And as we're looking at the figure itself, admittedly, some issues do become a little more glaring as you actually get it out of the package. Namely, the figure's head does stand a little tall on the neck, and speaking of which, the neck itself does not move whatsoever. I can't get the budge one bit. I'm kind of messing with the hair here, so it was a little bit loose, but with a little fidgeting because the faceplate was also a little loose from transport, it does go right back in. Surprisingly enough, the hair plastic and a little bit are generally softer plastics, which unfortunately I can't say for the shoulder, the sleeve bits. Unfortunately, those are a bit of harder plastic, as well as the actual dress I found during my first impression here. And another thing which I kind of notice off the bat as I'm fidgeting around with these things, unfortunately, while the shoulders do seem to use the right style of articulation on there, they're just a combination of really stiff moving vertically, so up and down, but in terms of the rotation, they're just surprisingly loose. There is a butterfly joint in there, but it's a very loose butterfly joint, so they will be very flappy when you're messing around with them. It's probably having to do with, it looks like there's some clear and definite casting issues in here. These aren't necessarily factory defects as much as just recasted bits, unfortunately, it looks like. So there are some fitting issues definitely on this particular figure here. As we can see, here's the flapping in action, so to speak, in here. The torso there a bit, it doesn't move particularly well, I find. It's just really stiff. Like, there's one part of it, I think the bottom end, that feels like it's really stuck in there and not moving too well. And speaking of things that aren't moving overly well, as I'm about to show here, the hips themselves are a bit oblong in their shape. They feel like they're a little long or a little wider than they should be. And also worth noting, I was kind of pointing at the upper torso separation because the upper torso was not properly closed. Back to the hips themselves, the belt is also a bit of a harder plastic than I was expecting. I was expecting something to be a softer plastic, but it's still functional, but it is going to be a bit of an issue rotating, which I did experience. Looking between the legs here, Surprisingly enough, it does have the proper 2.0 fighting body articulation, although there's some really rough bits of plastic in there, which I'm going to want to take a look at a little bit later once we do the official teardown. And unfortunately, that stiff cape makes the whole legs harder to move and hold, which is a bit sad because those knee joints there, not the prettiest things per se, but they actually are really nice and tight. They're actually a good fit on there. And same with the other knee in this case. Even the little leg rotation bits are working as they're supposed to, so the legs actually aren't half bad, to be quite honest, on there. They do hold their pose very well. I just wish the cape, or not the cape, the skirt allowed for more flexibility. But that's something that hopefully can be tinkered with later. Unfortunately, in terms of also other articulation issues, the toes and the feet are rubbish on this figure, I'm afraid. That one, the left one there, is just kind of really loose, and the toe joint, as you can see, is just outright busted. It's not going to work at all. And the right one, it's a little bit tighter there. It's just still really loose, and the toe joint on that one too is equally rubbish. None of those are, they're really all bent out of shape. The pins are in terrible shape, so they're not going to move. Now we're putting the two figures side by side. As you can kind of guess, left one is the fake, real one is on the right there. And they're roughly the same height. If anything, the bootleg, because of the whole neck issue, is slightly taller, I find. Mind you, though, there are some other obvious differences, like the actual quality of the paint job. The torso there was really heavily shaded in there. The pants, well, the belt and the bottom skirt are definitely askew on the bootleg, and the pants are outright glossy in this case, which is actually a bit surprising. There should be a little bit of a semi-gloss, but not to the near same extent here. And now let's see it. The boots are actually slightly taller too. I believe there might be some issue with the casting on that one. But, yeah. Now we're going to actually, just for proof of concept, here's the articulation for the shoulder on the real one. As you can see, it looks a lot the same as when we saw earlier when I was looking at the bootleg version. But it's just a much nicer fit because you can tell this thing's been fitted properly. And speaking just for proper comparison, here's the Super Saiyan Rose heads in this case. In terms of the face, I shouldn't really need to explain. Yeah, the decals on the bootleg are much thicker in terms of line width, and they're just misplaced. And in terms of the actual paint job on the hair, it is definitely a little more rough, to say the least, in terms of both casting as well as paint job. But generally, if you're messing around with this, maybe to modify for later, like I'm going to do, it's still serviceable. If anything, the forehead does ride a little high, but mind you, that also has to do with the decals being slightly off kilter. Probably the biggest issue I'm finding here, aside from little dents and issues here and there on the actual hair, is that the neck peg itself is not properly flush, or is not a proper clean one. I actually had to clean out some of the plastic in there in order to make it so I could actually fit it on the head properly. Which is, even with it removed, a bit of an issue, because the neck peg on this particular figure is not so great. It also is suffering from some flashing issues, which is going to make it a bit of a problem kind of swapping things in and out. The normal head came off no issue whatsoever, but trying to get the Super Saiyan head on there is a lot more of a struggle. And now we can see the torso is a bit prone to some issues. Speaking of things which aren't quite a good fit, now we're going to look at some of the effect pieces in this case. Namely, the top one there is the real figure. We can see is a nice translucent purple in there, a lot more shine. And the bottom one, which is kind of a matte color, it's still translucent, but it's just much less vibrant. That's the bootleg piece. For reference, this is piece number 1, or piece A, I should say, of the energy ball effect. And as we're going to kind of flip them over, you can see the real one has a translucent base on there, while the bottom one is the purplish color as the rest, and also has some flashing issues, which, in order to try to get it to fit in the effect ball, I actually had to manually take some clippers and clean it up. Not just for that piece, but for a number of others. And even then, well, we're going to show this next on the footage here, once we actually bring up the energy balls themselves. As you can see, the one that's in my left hand there is the real one, much more translucent, with nice shiny gloss, very easy to see through. The one on the right, that's the bootleg one, as you can safely tell. It is just a really coarse color on there, and it's also slightly deformed, as you can see here, deformed to the point I can't actually get the pegs for the effect to stay in place. most of them don't even fit properly. You really have to push them in there, and they don't actually go all the way in. So that's going to take some more modification to work, which is a pity because otherwise it looked like it might have been serviceable. But it's going to need more work so I can actually use the thing. It's a bit annoying to say the least. Maybe I'll find a way to strip the paint off and do a better paint job myself on this, which is probably what I'm going to try to do. And speaking of things which are a little rough, here's the real effect on the real figure, and in my hands, the bootleg effect. As you can see, the real kind of energy blade is a nice kind of a translucent but slightly glossy. There's like a sparkly texture on there, while the bootleg one is just a rougher casting. It's actually slightly bent at the tip there, and is just kind of roughly painted. Just a note, the bootleg effect will fit on the hand, in this case the real one, a bit of a tight fit, but it's made to fit someone on this bootleg hand, which you can see is slightly misshapen, as well as physically smaller, because, like a number of odd pieces here, it's recasted. Which is a bit of a pity, because the paint job for the ring actually is good on the bootleg hands, but it's just a kind of a bad fit. I think that's enough of looking at this figure in one piece. Let's get to the teardown part of this video, which is, quite frankly, the fun part for me. We're going to start off with the head in this case, because, quite frankly, once you remove the faceplate, the damn thing pops off pretty damn easy. The neck peg is not exactly the best on this thing, like I mentioned before, so it does pop off pretty well. In terms of the shoulders, as you can kind of imagine, there's going to be a lot of standard stuff you kind of expect with a little more of a legitimate figure on this one. So the actual sleeves on the shoulders do kind of hang on there by a single peg. Those come off easy enough. You can get a little bit of better look at the butterfly motion on there, or at least that's what it's supposed to be. In terms of the wrist, the reason I'm not taking them off in this video is because you can kind of see the wrist peg is trying to split as is when I'm trying to just rotate it casually. So if I figured if I'm going to take it off, I might as well take it off at the shoulder here, because the wrist peg is probably going to break on me the minute I give it a real shot on there. So we're going to take off the shoulder cover next. We're going to see everything kind of on a rotating wheel joint of there. It's just really stuck in there. Could use some kind of a lubricant or something. You probably some soap in order to really loosen that point so you have some vertical movement on there. And subsequently for the butterfly joint, it could use something like a super glue mod maybe to try to get that to stick around a little better. But it's just good to know and be able to see it here so you can kind of see it in reference, especially if, like me, you're looking to try to mimic and recreate some of these joints later. Also worth noting, just for more amusement than anything, is the shoulder joints do happen to have left and right markers on them, just for reference. In terms of the foot articulation here, here's the one that was kind of stuck on there, and now we can kind of see why. The ball peg is just really tight on the bottom of the foot there, while as opposed to the other one, it's really loose, so you have a complete contrast on those parts. Moving there, we're going to just pop the middle torso part again, because it came off so easy the first time around. Take care of the belt, take care of the skirt. Skirt itself is two parts in this case, a lot like the Android 18 figure, which kind of makes sense, makes it easier to hypothetically move it one way or the other, especially if it was a proper soft plastic. And in terms of the hips here, we have a little bit of a better look to what the 2.0 fighting body hips should look like. Mind you, these aren't exactly the cleanest example on there, as we're kind of looking there. The plastic is looking a little rough around the crotch in there. And yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. There's a lot of scratch and marks that you wouldn't be expecting here from a proper casting. And this might explain why the hips themselves just seem to be kind of a little off fit, maybe because this has kind of been a recasted bit. And it's really not moving there. It's a really tight fit on there, which is a bit of a problem. If anything, this slide needs to be loosened up a bit more. And you can tell how much it needs to be loosened because there's some stress on that plastic there that does not belong there. Or there's just some kind of odd plastic there, like a poor quality version of it. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there. Now we're going to pop off the other side, which is a little more generous in terms of its movement. And as you can see, it does have a vertical movement up and down there. It's still pretty tight in there, but it is movable, so that is a good sign here. If you were looking for a reference bit for trying to remake this articulation, this would be a better side to look at. Once you clean up the extra flash of plastic, that is. As you can see, that center part is pretty much, it's just a steady piece of plastic. It's a bit rough around the edges, but it is serviceable. So those are going to be the lower body there. And now we're going to move to the upper torso here. And as you can kind of see, the whole thing, just because it was so loose, It takes a little extra wiggle room and unfortunately a couple of broken pegs, because that's what we do on this channel. But once we look inside, we can see the articulation-wise, it looks a lot like what we saw in the Super Saiyan 3 2.0 figure. Just slightly modified for a bit more of a lighter head or a standard body. Interesting to see is when I remove the neck here, you can kind of tell if there was the proper spacing around the neck, it actually should be able to move. Which, unfortunately in this case, because it's kind of, I'd say poorly casted, it's a slight shrinkage, if anything. It doesn't quite fit like it's supposed to. Everything's a little too tight around the edges here. And as we take one last look at kind of the upper body articulation here, we can see how a hypothetically working version of that abdomen crunch is supposed to look like, although this is a really stiff example of it, I should say. It still gives an idea of something that I wanted to know for the hopefully final set of fixes for the Super Saiyan 3 2.0 body that is still ongoing. Hopefully that's going to be concluded in the very near future of May. At least that's my plan right now. But also, to be quite frank, I didn't pick up this particular figure just on a lark. I actually did intend this for some very specific parts. In this case, actually being the head in this case. I wanted it very particular, as well as hypothetically some of the accessory bits. Why the head, you might ask? Well, for those that are familiar with older Dragon Ball figures, especially the Super Battle Collection, there's a particular premium figure from that set that is the Volume 00 Son Goku Perfect Edition. What that consists of is a Goku that had a number of swappable heads, the normal regular form, Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2, and Super Saiyan 3, as those were the readily available ones at the time, and basically lets you swap the heads and have whichever one you want at a time. And I kind of thought to myself, why not make a Figuarts equivalent of that? So the neck mod happened as a result of that, and as you can see, that worked out a lot better than expected. And if I can hypothetically set this up right, now I suddenly have at least a Super Saiyan 1 head. It's not quite the right hairdo for Super Saiyan 2, but that's going to be a separate project for another day. And I believe that's all I need to say for now, folks. Definitely keep in tune because we're going to have some interesting projects in the very near future. Thanks for watching. Catch you all later.